This is Robert Clinkybeard and David Anderson with the Commercial Landscapers Podcast. We're going to take 20 minutes of your life to deliver some amazing business content from accomplished leaders to bring you value, scale your business, and better yourself personally. We hope you really enjoy the show, and I encourage you to share with your network so they can subscribe and we can expand these messages globally. We are also super excited to be supported by two brilliant sponsors. If you're tired of measuring properties, Site Recon platform fully automates measurements so you can focus on sales. So think measurements, think Site Recon. The other sponsor is Company Cam, who make it dead simple to communicate, document, and problem solve with guys in the field, no matter where you are. Company Cam brings documentation, communication, and liability protection together in one simple, easy to use app for you and your entire team. Company Cam is the only app every landscaper needs. Check it out. Hi, this is Robert Clinkybeard with the Commercial Landscapers Podcast. So I am welcome to be joined by David Anderson. David Anderson is a good friend of mine, known Dave for probably 12, 13 years. Partner in the Radix Group company. He's now global chair for the Entrepreneurs Organization. And Dave, I'm going to let you talk about your long resume of business experience.
Well, I don't think your listeners really want to listen to just me talk about myself. So I think you hit on some of the high points, Robert. You know, we've been friends for lots of years. We've been in EO together. We've both served in EO. Yes, I am the current global chair. I also have started and been successful at a few companies and failed miserably at more than a few also. So I've covered all of the spectrum on that. I'm a marketing firm. I have a SaaS-based software company, and I also have a consulting company, which I think is what we're going to talk a lot about today.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. No, I know that we currently work with a client, one of your many clients, and you do some leadership, and this came up in the conversation. I thought, well, this would be good for a conversation today about how you go in and help companies, and just, even though on the surface, a lot of these companies are well-performing company, millions and millions of dollars in revenue, great profitable company, but when you actually start to peel back the layers, they've definitely got some challenges going on. So I'd love to talk to you today just about what you go in and coach other companies to do, which is all around high performing teams and how to get them a little bit more functional, a bit more alignment within the company. So does that work good for you, David?
Yeah, it sounds perfect. Absolutely perfect. You want me to dive in? You got a specific question?
Yeah, well, let's start off with, I know all companies are different when you first go into them, but what are some of the initial challenges that, first of all, you're typically asked by the CEO owner to come into the company, because they have a good sense that there's challenges going on. They're just not performing the way they should be. So talk about some of the challenges you do typically see.
Well, the interesting thing that both you and I know, because we're in very different industries ourselves in some ways or in our past, is that while there are thousands and thousands of different types of businesses, at the end of the day, 95% of our challenges are all the same, pretty typical. And excuse me. Yes, I want to apologize to everybody. I know this day and age of COVID, it's impossible to think that somebody can just have a cold, but I actually have a cold. So if I cough or sneeze, I apologize. Luckily, it's all virtual, so you can't catch it from me. No, but and of that 95%, the vast majority of that falls into the people category of challenges that, as business owners, entrepreneurs, CEOs, any role of leadership, usually always our greatest asset are our people. Most of the time, our greatest challenges are also our people. And so it's very much about having a high-performing team. And I'm a huge sports guy, as I know you are. All of our kids play sports in that. But as I spent this past weekend watching football, baseball, basketball's on, and then what wins championships? Championships are won by high-performing teams. No championship is won by an individual. Even when you go to race car driving, that was on this weekend, Formula One, diving, everybody has a team around them that allows them to reach their full potential to achieve championships. And that's really where I work, because it's the exact same in business. You can have the best strategy, the best game plan. You can invest all the money you want in scaling up, EOS, Prisma. There's a whole bunch of them out there. But if you don't have the right team to execute against them, you will never achieve your full potential and win your championship of business, whether that's all of your goals, whatever it may be. And so that's where, and I know you do some of this also, where it's really working to make sure you build a team that allows you to win championships. Championships are won by high-performing teams that work together towards a common goal.
No, I agree 100%. And one of the challenges I see is that, even just when you go back to the whole sports analogy, where, one of my favorite teams back in the UK is Manchester United, and they just brought on Ronaldo. Yes, paid a ton of money for him. Everybody's got so much pressure on this one person. But then, the manager then has to try and deal with, yes, you've got this superstar, but you've also got, existing 5 or 10 other superstars in the team. And somehow that manager's got to try and corral them, coach them in different ways. So how do you see that then working in business? Because I'm sure you come across the same challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's the best sports analogy to that? Would be, what's his name? Phil. He was the coach for the Bulls, and he had Michael Jordan, unbelievable, but he had Scottie Pippen, and he had, who was the crazy guy with the tattoos and all of that? Rod something.
Oh, yeah, I know who you mean.
Yeah. Think how he had to manage that team with those personalities to win all the championships that they do. And as a CEO or a founder, that's exactly what you have to do. I kind of say that being a CEO is like being a chemist. It's the right mix of all the people, the roles, the responsibilities. It's the right things that you do, how you motivate each of them individually or differently. How do they have clear understandings of what their roles and responsibilities are? Is there clarity around your communications to each of them on what the mission is, what their roles are, how they support each other? That's what you need to do with your own teams in business too. And it's taking the time to ensure that those are, first of all, on the table. How many meetings have you been in with your own teams? And there's the person who sits off in the corner quiet, and then as soon as the meeting's over, they come into your office and go, "Hey, I didn't agree with this, or this," and I'm like,
no.
"Why didn't you bring it up in the meeting?"
So true.
Come on, everybody
so
listening
true.
has that person that doesn't say a word until they talk to you one-on-one. So,
or they'll bitch behind your back.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, really, Robert? I've never had that happen. I can't imagine that happen. And think how many sports teams, not a Yankees fan, so I'm going to say the Yankees. My son would not like to hear me say that, but have the biggest payrolls in the world and don't win championships, because you can't build a championship team around a bunch of individuals. They need to be a team together. And that's where, I kind of work. And it kind of goes to those 4 pillars of a successful business. It's trust and cohesion among your leadership team. So does everybody trust each other? Do you have all the right processes, systems in place for people to do their best job? Is there absolute clarity about each individual's roles and responsibility? And finally, are your communications, is there clear communications? Are they understandable? Are they universal? Are you as a CEO telling different stories to different people? A team can disagree when they're in a meeting, but do they walk out united and there's clarity of communications to your team, to the rest of the team afterwards?
No, for sure. And I'm going to dive into those 4 different processes, or 4 pillars, I should say. But I'm assuming that when you go into a company, you're not necessarily going to dive into those 4 pillars. I mean, I assume there's a little bit of, you'd need to build up some trust with that team that you go into and understand who are some of the characters, who are some of the strengths and weaknesses that you have with that team in order for you to understand them and then be able to go through your magic with these 4 pillars.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely an assessment that needs to be done. And again, just to be blunt, because as you know, I can be that way, Robert.
Yep.
Sometimes you get a CEO to come in and say, I have problems with my team and, we're not clicking, blah, 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 blah. And I need you to fix them. And you come in and you do an assessment. And what do we find, Robert?
Where's of course, the owner.
Where's the problem? Exactly. So, to your listeners, if you don't have thick skin, you probably don't want to ask for help. Sometimes, and again, I know you have more tact than I do, but you can be pretty direct also, that if you're not willing to do a full team assessment, which includes you as the leader of the organization, to really understand of what it is, I'm not so sure you're really committed to that high-performing team, because a high-performing team needs the head coach or the owner, whichever you want to be. When there's dissent between the owner and the head coach, or the owner is not getting along with the quarterback on the field, that things aren't working right. I mean, it just doesn't work. So you have to be willing to look top down, from the very top down, to where those challenges are, do an assessment, find out where the challenge points are. Sometimes it means you don't have the right people on the team too, and you got to be willing to do that. To make those tough choices. Marshall Goldsmith has an amazing book called Tigers, and it's all about what got you here won't get you to the next level. So if you are a business owner that has stalled, can't reach something, you just have to be okay knowing that what got you to this point might not get you to the next.
Yep, and that's usually where you get some type of an outside help, whether it be a coach or mentor or something, just to, again, to peel back some of the layers, really find out what some of those challenges are. Now, I can imagine it's pretty tough for you going into companies, because there are a lot of egos typically in the room. You've got the owner there, you've got all this leadership team in there who've all got to that position and done pretty well. But how do you start to work with that type of team? What are some of the tools or exercises or the format that you typically go through just to start to make an impact? Because I can't imagine it's something that's going to happen over a meeting once a week for 2 or 3 weeks. This is something like an ongoing program.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, you have to get buy-in from the team that everybody wants to get better. That they realize that there's a challenge. And if you point the finger at just one person, you're wrong. If somebody on the team says it's all this person's fault, that person's fault, you're 100% wrong. Robert, is in what we do, the most important thing we do is we listen. We come in with a lot of questions and we just listen. And I'm going to give you another sports analogy. It's kind of like Olympic diving. You throw out the high and the low, and you find that the high scores and the low scores, and you find where that medium is. And that's where you start really learning what the challenges are. And you do that not only in group meetings, but a lot of one-on-ones. Also, it's a process. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint to build a high-performing team. I mean, rarely do you see a team go from a really bad season or not doing great all the way to the championship, but they have 2 or 3 good draft picks that come in, or there's a new coach, or somebody steps up on the team and takes a different leadership role, and that can take a while to do. So this is a marathon, not a sprint, to get what it is. So it's a lot of, building the 5 dysfunctions of a team. That's where you get the most cohesive and trusting teams. And that's a pyramid process, and you have to build towards that. So it's a lot of that work of building that atmosphere where people can speak their mind, respectfully disagree, but come to conclusions that are best interest of the team, not in any one individual.
Right. Yeah, I love the five dysfunctions book and the concepts, and I love how everything's based off the the base layer, which is the trust part. So that's a great program, and I assume that you're coming in with different exercises and tools just to work through that, and effectively helping towards your buy-in. Correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's absolutely things that you have people kind of submit on their own. And then that kind of gives you, kind of some evaluation questions, analysis of stuff to go through. There's even simple things like, tell me where the company's going. All individually have people submit back to you of, what's our goals for the year? What's the long-term vision of the company? What's our annual goals? And it's always interesting to see, wow, you guys spend, well, COVID aside and working at home and all that, you spend a great part of each and every day working together, but there's 5 people on this leadership team, and there's 5 different answers for 80+% of the questions. You have a challenge,
Yeah. No, for sure. Especially if you're asking them, where's the company going? What's the company strategy? And if you have, 5 different answers, there's an issue there. There's a lack of alignment, and that gets back to working together as a team, that cohesiveness, that trust, that's working together towards the same goal. So I assume when you go into companies, you definitely come across either some setbacks or some challenges. Maybe there's somebody that doesn't make the cut, or maybe somebody goes sideways a little bit, and you have to deal with that challenge, which can produce some setbacks. How do you deal with those types of challenges?
Oh, absolutely. There's at least one in every group. And sometimes they're just battle scarred. They've been beaten up so much, or things have been bad for so long. So you got to really get people to commit to a willingness to move forward. But I've also seen that sometimes people just give up when it's going to get hard, and you're going to have to really work at something towards that common goal, that you're really going to have the tough conversations with fellow coworkers, that you have to get a CEO okay to sit in a room and hear feedback from their team. Always respectful. Number one unbreakable rule is that it always has to be done respectfully and in the best interest of the organization. People kind of self-select out. I think you've seen this too many times, Robert, that many times we as owners put people into leadership positions because it's easy. It's like, such and such left, that we're just going to move Bobby up into this role. I don't have to go in or hit. I could see you. You're laughing. I guess you made the same mistake I have.
Oh, totally. I've either done it or seen it. So.
Yeah. So sometimes Bobby realizes that they don't want to be in a leadership role too, and it's that alignment of what you've had. I mean, again, baseball is a perfect example. And if anybody's not into sports, you've probably turned this off already listening to me. But if you're a baseball fan, or think about all the other things, you go to college baseball, and then there's A, triple A, double A. There's all these leagues. In football, we have the practice teams. In basketball, we have the same. So we have a training program and coaches to better make people better athletes in some form or another. What do we do in business? We hire them, we give them roles, we say, do a good job. And oh, by the way, there's no plan for you advance into your next role. We're not going to give you leadership teaming training. We're not giving you conflict resolution training. We just say, okay, on Wednesday, you're starting this new role. How ridiculous is that? We have to train and grow and evaluate our people and help make them successful. That's our role as leaders, is to make our team members successful. And if that means hiring a coach, if that means sending them to continuing education, if that means buying them every single book that they want to read, if that means you bringing in speakers to your company, this myth that once people graduate from college or don't graduate from college, once they enter the workforce, that they're fully trained for any role you give them.
No, it's so true. I was chuckling when you were saying that, because a lot of the time they get their promotion because they've been technically good at something else, but we've never given them any training when they actually have to manage people and manage all the emotions and all the challenges that people have typically in a company. Then we just leave them out there to dry. So
yeah. How about this one, Robert? Have you ever seen this one? Okay, now you're promoted and you manage the team. So on Friday, you're a peer to them, and on Monday, you're their manager. How do you think that goes over with people? What do you mean you're telling me what to do? What do you know? So, I mean, again, I'm guilty of it. I'm a really slow learner. So I made that mistake more times than I can count. But just think about that. You know, on Friday, we're going out drinking together. On Monday, I'm telling you what to do every day at work. That's not going to lead to any conflict.
No way. Especially when you start to throw in, all the challenges around increasing salaries, remote working, all these other challenges thrown into the mix as well. So it's just a complete recipe for disaster. So I think this is such a hot topic right now. And I don't feel enough people address this. They just almost turn that blind eye to it. They think that everything's working well, and they turn that blind eye. They still look at the bottom line and say, I'm still making money. But what are some of the results that you've seen with working sub companies? I mean, you obviously talk about winning championships within sports, but within a company, what are some of the positives that come out of you working with them and introducing your 4 pillars? And
well, for me, the greatest one, if you can achieve that cohesive and trusting leadership team, everything else becomes a lot easier. When you can go into a leadership team meeting and have a conversation and like, hey, we disagree, we're going to actively debate this, but we're going to leave this room united. That's when you've achieved the best that you can do. Also, if you can't get 100% to that level, it's the clearly defined roles and responsibilities where, hey, we're all going to give you input. You're going to welcome it. You're thankful. You ask us more questions, but we understand this is your decision and move forward in the best interest of the company. So, and again, depending on the size of your company, you can do your listeners can do a Google search on the stages of growth. And there's a lot of things on the stages of growth of a business. Like when you start, I think the number's 21 or 27, I can't remember. That's where your company starts making a big shift and where process, systems, and procedures are a must. When you're 15 people, 12 people sitting around, it's really easy. You can all talk to each other. So you have to balance all of that of where the processes, systems, and procedures are so important, especially for a growing company, because you just have more people of what you want to do. And like 99% of things in life, it all comes down to communications. I have a rule. It's 10% what you say and 90% how you say it.
So true. Yep.
And as a leader, never forget that. Hey, why didn't you get that done? We missed our goal versus, hey, I noticed we missed our goal. Can you help? Let's work together to figure out why and how can I support you so that we can fix it or go forward.
Just totally different.
Just think about that. And we're both parents. How many times have you gone to your kids? I know your one son's Jack, why did you do that? Well, he's getting older. He might actually flip you off now, but he's getting close. Younger, they start crying. You break them down. They get upset. We're no different. It's how you communicate and talk to your team member,
Yeah, for sure. We're running out of time here. In fact, how do people get in touch with you, David, just to ask more questions, find out more about you, maybe how they can come into their companies and help them out? So what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, thanks. First of all, they know how to find you more than me, and you know how to find me. So that's a great way. But you can also go to my website, dwaleadership.com, and there's contact information on there. You can reach me at my email address the same way, dwa@dwaleadership.com, and you can find me any of those ways. And my LinkedIn, David Anderson, my LinkedIn profile also.
Oh, they can buy your book.
Yes, or they can buy my book. Yeah, Leader is Not a Title. Thank you. Thank you for adding that shameless plug for me and not making me do it myself, Robert.
No worries, no worries. Well, David, really appreciate your time today. Really valuable information. I think most companies should be doing this to bring this into the team, bringing you in as a coach and just helping them become better aligned. So thank you, David. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, buddy. I always enjoy it. I'll see you soon out there.
Okay, cheers. Hopefully that was pure dead brilliant for you today, and we've got some great takeaways for your business and your personal life. This is Robert Clinkenbeard along with David Anderson, and would love to get you and your friends to join us on our journey. 2 quick things before you go, listeners. Check out our website, thecommerciallandscaper.com. You can subscribe, you can share with your friends, but more importantly, check out our sponsors. We have Site Recon, who are going to help to capture measurements on your property and create a really streamlined process. And we have Company Cam, who make it dead simple to communicate, document, and problem solve with guys in the field, no matter where you are. Thanks, everyone. Cheers.